Welcome back, everybody. It is League on Lock, and we're doing something a little bit special ahead of the first weekend of LCS action. We're going to take a look at some daily fantasy or DFS picks ahead of the LCS because, as we know, the fantasy draft not happening until the summer split. So to hold you over until, Riot gets things figured out, daily fantasy is definitely an option for you throughout the spring split. And if you're not familiar with it, instead of drafting a team that you're stuck with for the entire year, every weekend or every set of games, you're picking a specific roster and you're given a salary that you have to come underneath, and that's what you do each and every game. So the rules, and these are all according to DraftKings.com, which is one of the biggest sites that can do all of this stuff. The way it works is you're going to be drafting 6 players and 1 team, and one of those players will be a captain, which means he gets 1.5 times the points as opposed to just 1. And the way the points are broken up, kills 3 points for a player, assists are 1 point, you lose a point for deaths. Minions, every minion that you're going to get is 0.02 points. So, of course, a lot of these games, guys are getting 400 CS. That eventually adds up. And anytime you get 10 kills or 10 assists, you get +2 for that little bonus. And the team scoring breakdown, 1 point for turrets, 2 for dragons, 3 for barons. You get first blood, you get 2. If you win the game, you get 2. And if you win the game in under 30 minutes, you get another 2 points, which is something we saw quite often throughout, so far in spring, at least in the LEC. That happens almost all the time with Misfits and G2 speed running their way through the rest of the competition. So you're drafting 5 players, 1 captain, like I mentioned, and 1 team, and you have a $50,000 salary. Each player has their own made-up salary based. Obviously, the better the player, the higher the salary is going to be, and you kind of work around your finances to come in under that 50K mark and put together what you think the best roster will be. We're going to take a look at day 1 of the LCS and go through all the roles, kind of some interesting picks that you could go for, and what the interesting matchups are, who's going to have a fantastic opening day. And one other thing to note is you can only have 4 players from one team, so you can't just do an entire roster, with one squad, because that makes sense. Otherwise, it's too easy, and it's a lot more fun this way. But let's start in the top lane where, and you're going to notice an ongoing theme throughout all these roles, is it's basically the salaries are ranked based on how big of an underdog the team is against them. So Impact is the most expensive guy going up against Cloud9, then the likes of Sunday. And this is basically going to stick true. This is how DraftKings has it set up. For every role, the most expensive guy is going to be from Team Liquid. The least expensive is from Cloud9. So it's an ongoing theme here. But for the top lane, I like to just pick, I would like Someday in this opening week. He's going up against Broken Blade. That is a tough matchup for Broken Blade to make his NA LCS debut against the All-Pro and basically MVP runner-up from the summer split. This meta looks great for Someday. I think Broken Blade's got a lot of pressure. It's going to take some time for him to get acclimated to North America and kind of how the LCS works, how he's going to be implemented into this TSM roster. And we know TSM in 2018 definitely started slow. I think 100 Thieves with this new roster are going to be fired up. And Someday, even when they were struggling at Worlds, he was performing very well. And I think the offseason probably will have learned, don't put him only on tanks. Put him on carries. Put him on an Aatrox. Put him on a Jace. Vladimir across the scene. I like Someday as a top lane pick for this year, obviously, or for week 1. Obviously, someone like Impact, that's probably a stable pick, but Someday I think is going to be more involved in getting more kills, and you saw kills are worth more points than anything else, and Someday never dies. He never gets caught out. The junglers, again, Xmithie's going to come in as the most expensive guy, but I'm going lower down the market for jungle because I just got a feeling that Rush, in his return to North America, is going to have an incredible debut weekend, and it all starts against Clutch. I think that's basically a toss-up game. I could see Rush. I know he's not going to want to pick something boring like Sejuani in his first game back. He's going to pick something where he can be aggressive, something like a Kha'Zix where he can get a whole lot of kills, and I think that's going to be the case. I think Lyra struggled a lot in 2018, even though they have Clutch as more of the favorite in this matchup. I think Rush could really have a field day, and I like him as a guy to completely pop off. And the fact that Onda is one of the most expensive junglers. I know 100 Thieves are semi-big favorites over TSM, but that seems a little absurd to have his salary that high. So I'm going with one of the lower guys in Rush because I expect him to put on a show for Echo Fox, even though that roster as a whole does not look great. On to mid laners, where Jensen is, of course, the most expensive. I mean, that's a juicy matchup to go against Cloud9. If you're feeling extra bold, you pick Nisqy and save a lot of your money because, I mean, he's got something to prove against Jensen. Maybe you're feeling a little bit of the underdog story. But much like Rush, I think Rush is going to have a great debut. I like Froggen against FlyQuest. I think Pole Belter we've seen throughout the last several years, that's probably going to mostly be a farm lane, but I think as soon as you get to any kind of team fights or skirmishes, Froggen is going to completely pop off. That's a great lane for him. I don't think he's going to be pressured too hard. He's going to get all his CS well ahead of 10 a minute. He's going to be at an absurd amount. That's what he's been known for throughout his entire career, and he will start farming champions once team fights actually get around. So excited to see him back on the LCS stage, and he's an interesting pick. I know he's a little bit expensive in that top 3-4 mid lanes, but I think it will be worth it. And now we go to those bottom lanes where this is the most interesting thing to me because you have, first off, DraftKings still have Arrow starting, and as an expensive-ish, top 5 in terms of expensive for 80 carries. But he's not even starting, as we know. By Optic announced that Asta will be starting, which means just bundle up on that CLG bottom lane. I love picking Stixxay against them. This guy has never played in the LCS, has Asta for Optic. He's their Academy 80 carry. You got to expect that Stixxay and Biofrost will be able to dominate that lane and really just come up big for them. And a guy I didn't talk about in terms of mid lanes, but for my captain, I'd also consider a guy like Power of Evil. That CLG versus Optic match, I'm expecting a lot of kills. I think Power of Evil is going to want, of course, he's going to want a bit of revenge. I don't see MVP, LCK MVP crown showing up, at least in the first week of North America. Maybe after a little while, we'll start to see shades of it, but from what I saw at Worlds, I just don't see him bouncing back to that form. So I'm going all in on a lot of these CLG guys in that matchup against Optic, specifically because they don't have a lot of their starters that are, well, not a lot of, just Arrow, who's not going to be playing. So a guy like Stixxay probably have a great day. And then we look at supports. I already talked about the bot lane as a whole. I'm bringing Biofrost in with him to completely dominate that Optic bottom lane. So that's my go-to for support. Some other guys, I mean, Core JJ. If you still have a lot of leftover money, maybe you go with him. Obviously, supports are a lot cheaper than any of the other roles because unless you're playing Pyke, you're not exactly going to be popping off and getting a whole lot of kills. But I still like that CLG duo lane going there. And for my team, I don't actually have CLG because that game might be over quick. When you're looking at teams, yes, you get that bonus 2 points if you finish under 30 minutes. But really, you want these games to drag out. You want to get as many Barons, Dragons, and Turrets as possible. And who better than 100 Thieves and TSM? You know they both played super slow in the summer split and spring split. They both made some roster changes, but they were routinely playing north of 40 minutes. So either of those squads, I think, are a good pick to have for your team on day one. And I think 100 Thieves will win that matchup. So I'd take 100 Thieves. So if we take a look at across the board what my roster's looking like for day one, you got that 100 Thieves lineup against TSM. Also, someday in the top lane for 200 Thieves, Rush, I'm excited for his debut, and Froggen, I'm also excited. And then 3 CLG members. Power of Evil goes as the captain, which means he's getting 1.5 times the points. I think Stixxay and Biofrost will do great in lane, but PoE, I mean, there's so many assassin and carry champions that he can be playing. in that mid lane. You saw him on Talon, on Optic, on his Victor, where he was completely destroying. If anyone is going to actually play Victor mid lane instead of top lane, it's going to be somebody like Power of Evil against Crown. I mean, that's his most historically recognized champion. You also had $200 left over with that roster, but a lot of CLG in that Optic matchup. 100 Thieves, I think deservedly so favorites, and really no Liquid members there because they're the most expensive, and I don't think they should be as favored or as big a matchup as they are against C9. I know Jensen versus Niski looks like a mismatch on paper, but I think Cloud9 actually plays that game a lot closer than people are expecting. That's day one of your DFS preview, picks, and rankings for the LCS. We'll be doing plenty more of that as the spring season unfolds, and maybe even taking a look at the European League as well.